So from that logic, right, we need to start thinking about the loops of the human face. And there's a couple that make sense, right? Right off the bat, we're going to do the eye. There's going to be an eye loop. Sorry. That runs all the way around the eye like this. Now, why is it going to do that? It's going to do that because these lids need to move up and down freely. And it therefore needs the edges looping around that in order to facilitate that, right? So there's this primary loop here. I'm going to just start coloring these in different colors just so you can sort of see them actually. So we have this loop of the eye. We then have the same thing on the mouth, right? Because the mouth needs to move in and out. You know, it needs to contract and expand sort of omnidirectionally, right? So that's why it needs like a true loop running around it. Okay. The human face also has a really prominent laugh line here. And so what we're going to do is we need a loop running sort of like this that facilitates that laugh line. I'll draw it on the other side as well for you. Kind of like this. Right? Then we also need sort of like a visor loop, I guess you could say, because the human face has eyebrows and these eyebrows need to contract downward, right? These need to go down, the nose needs to come up. But we also have like these fold structures here through the eye. This all needs to be preserved. So the idea here is we have another loop that runs like this. Like that. Almost like a mask that they're wearing. Right? So it naturally encases the eyes on most sides, but then diverges here. Right? And you can sort of see that that's the exact same structure as this here, but turned on its side, right? I'll just draw on the cheek real quick, but we have the eye like this, and then we have some loop which comes around. We have a divergence here and a divergence here, right? So that's sort of the way we're looking at this. So it's obvious for us and intuitive as humans to think about the major loops of the face. But when you actually start topologizing these, that won't be the hard part, because the loops, they don't come like super intuitively, but there's a lot of literature on it, and it does make a lot of sense when you kind of think about it, right? So there's going to be this loop here that runs all the way down through to here. Oops. And there's going to be, I'm running out of colors here. There's going to be another one that runs out of the mouth, out this way, and to the back of the head, sort of like that. So these are the major loops. I guess like finally there's going to be sort of an enclosing loop on the side here that's going to run like around the face to sort of frame it. These are sort of the major loops, right? So we basically just need to think about these conceptually and keep these in our mind. But the three main ones that matter, really, that truly matter, is this one, and this one, right? Oh, and I suppose also the mouth, right? These ones are the major ones. The one around the eye, the sort of visor loop that runs around it, the laugh line, and the mouth. This other stuff here is more or less just sort of to facilitate these loops existing, like because you can't pull the mouth in this direction without having some sort of structure that runs across it, right? But also to facilitate just the even and easy like dissolving and creation of the geometry overall, right? So conceptually our loops make sense, I think, right? We have circles around places that need to move omnidirectionally. We've got like a natural laugh line that's going to need some creasing here, so we're going to have an edge that sort of runs like that to facilitate it. But now let's start thinking about the poles, because the poles are actually the connective point between the loops, right? So we have this eye loop here. It's running in a circle. We then have this one that diverges, right? From sort of here onwards, they're actually the exact same, right? They both run in the exact same fashion. But then this one splits off that way, and this one splits off that way. So we are going to naturally end up with two poles, roughly here and roughly here, right? Roughly there and there. We also have, as this loop continues this way and diverges up this way, this loop continues this way and diverges down. So following logic, we would naturally get a pole somewhere about here, right? Somewhere in this vicinity. Okay. What else do we have? We have this line is running this way, and this edge here is actually going to be quite a large chunk of polygons, right? Sort of like that, something of that description, which means that we're going to have a divergence down here and out this way. So we're going to get a pole roughly about here, somewhere in this vicinity. And you can sort of see with the top area here how this kind of, it's this line and this loop, which is sort of allowing for that to happen, and this is also here, right? We're gonna basically run all three of these off of the same point, and because this one loops up and around that way, and this one comes up, again, we have another divergence somewhere up here. In reality, we're gonna, oops, sorry, I'll just draw those back. In reality, it's going to be a little bit lower. It's going to hinge somewhere around here, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's one more really important one, and it's going to go about here. Why is it going to go here? Because I forgot to mark a line, right? I forgot to mark another loop. We need to support the mouth with another loop that runs around like this, right? So it's actually very similar to the mouth. In fact, it's sort of all the same structure, right? But the key thing is we need it to just exist a little bit outside of the mouth, like this. Which means that when you think about this loop that's going to be running alongside it, we're going to get a pole somewhere in here, right? Probably about here. Okay. So these are the major loops of the face, right? And these are the major poles. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 3 like primary loops, or 4 I really should say. We have the eye, we have the visor, we have the laugh line, and then we have the mouth. So these, you're going to sort of just, I guess, memorize them initially, but they will start to make sense as you start modeling and you more intuitively sort of understand the concept. Okay. I'm just going to really quickly demonstrate what we're going to end up doing with these poles and why they matter, right? If I turn the opacity of, keep my poles up, the opacity of my overall loops down, when we actually start drawing the geometry here, it's going to draw like this. Okay? Something like that. And then we're going to naturally run subdivisions like this through this geometry, through this structure. Like that. Now the eye is also going to need this very same loop here, right? Going around. But it's going to get to a point where if I was just to continue it, well, I haven't done the loop here. This polygon here is going to try and route back up this way, okay, like that. And I've actually sort of drawn the poles slightly wrong. I'll try and correct this here, like that. And then like this, right? So you can sort of see how I mentioned there would be 2 poles roughly in this area. It's going to be sort of this one up here and this one down here. In reality, these are all going to get like massaged into position and like corrected, and we're going to run extra loops required to sort of fill in the detail that we've missed, kind of like this, right? But once we establish those two poles, this is really what the geometry in this area is going to end up looking like. Okay. Now it's the same thing if we have the visor loop running around like this up to the nose, like that, and we're subdividing over and over again like this. This loop at the top will also be running along it, but it's going to head down here, right? Now for a while they're going to share the exact same topology. They're going to look like this. I'll just continue this way for a little bit to sort of demonstrate the point, right? Because there's no pole, like we've said, there will be no pole roughly in this region with which to split them. But here there will be. So when we diverge the two, we diverge at that sort of point. We split off from that point and then we continue, right? Into the mouth, kind of like this. Now, I conveniently sort of lined up with this pole here and kind of put a vert right there, because if we conceptually think about this mouth loop coming around like this, you can sort of see how we need this point here to sort of intercept this loop going that way. And then conveniently, right, we would have our laugh line like this. And it naturally just flows on, because we have that pole there sort of ready to merge this loop in with this loop. And we've said there will be no poles in this area. So that means that there's no chance for this geometry to split off and split apart. So it's forced to follow this around, right? So this is why the poles become like exceedingly important. And we have to really be conscious with where we place them. We're not putting them here by accident. We're putting them here specifically so that they can split geometry, or I guess, you know, if you look at it in reverse, sort of allowing the merging of geometry so that such that the two loops can share the edge, right? So this is sort of the basic theory behind actually retopologizing the face, and what poles are, why they matter, why they're placed, and sort of how they like interplay with each other, right?